Great. Good evening. I now call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of Oak Grove School District on January 19th, 2023 at 5:06 PM. May I have a motion and second to approve the agenda as submitted?
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The board will recess to close session to discuss public employee performance evaluation of the superintendent, discuss public employee discipline, release dismissal, government code section 54957, and confer with the district labor negotiators. Persons wishing to address the board on closed session items may use the raise your hand Zoom feature to speak. Please reference the agenda item number in your public comment. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone to speak to these items?
There are no virtual comments.
Thank you. We will now recess to closed session and return at approximately 6 PM. Good evening. Welcome to the regular board meeting of January 19th, 2023. It is now 6:04 p.m. and we have returned from closed session. I welcome everyone to our first board meeting of 2023, and I hope everyone had a safe holiday season. During our regular board meeting tonight, there are many opportunities for the public to address the board, public hearings, public comment, or during a specific agenda item. If you wish to speak to the board, please complete the online request to speak form or use the raise your hand feature when the agenda item is reached. This will help me better manage the meeting. When it is your turn to speak, your microphone will be unmuted and you will have 3 minutes to speak before the microphone is muted. The Brown Act governs meetings of governmental bodies in California. Your comments to the board must be specific to the agenda item that you are addressing. And if there's no specific item, you are welcome to present comments during public comment. Please note that you're attending a public meeting of the Board of Trustees doing the public's business. This is not a public forum for public debate. Member Pacheco, if you can please recite the land acknowledgement.
Yes. All right. So we acknowledge that the Oak Grove School District and our schools occupy the unceded territory of the Muwekma Ohlone Nation, the sovereign nation and original people of the skies, land, and waters where we work and learn. The Muwekma Ohlone people are the stewards of these lands and of the teaching and learning that comes from and responds to the needs of the land and people who share it. May our daily lives and work, research, teaching, community engagement support the evolving vision of the Muwekma Ohlone for their community and these lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Pacheco, and we hope you feel better soon. Superintendent Monzo, will you please lead the flag salute?
You can join me. Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Superintendent Monzo, and I'll go ahead and pass it to you for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Hernandez. First of all, I hope that everyone had a restful break during the holidays, and I want to wish everyone a happy new year. A new year always brings new opportunities of hope, of joy, and how we can do things better than we've previously have in the past. So I think as we begin this school year, whether we're looking to make improvements to our families, our relationships, our work, and dealing with whatever circumstance we may be dealing, I think we ask that we embrace the opportunity for improvement, for looking at how we can do things better, how we can encourage and get to a better place as a school district, as a society, and certainly as a Oak Grove community. And so again, with that, I want to welcome everybody to the 2023 year for our district and the work in front of us. I also want to acknowledge, and it saddens me to share, you've probably seen a communication sent out from my office and from our on social media with the passing of Miss Yvonne Cook. Miss Yvonne Cook was a 22 plus year board member, and we actually are sitting in the Yvonne Cook boardroom that was named after her in our district. In this very room, I think she alongside her colleague board members really set a standard for our district in how we engage with each other and how we build respect and trust with each other, and how we look for the very best opportunities to do our very best work for our kids. That's part of, I know, the legacy that she left behind for our district and for a role model for future boards and all of us as employees of the Oak Grove School District. So it's with great sadness that we extend also our condolences to the family and want to wish the family and loved ones our guidance, our support and prayers. This information was also shared with our entire Oak Grove community and in our social media. I want to thank Ms. Cecily Vu and also Denise Cook, who's been helping with the communications with the family and the sharing of information that we've sent out to our community and to our staff. So thank you. On another note, as we know, we've experienced some extreme weather for a very long time, 3 to 4 weeks. And so just another, again, an opportunity to thank our maintenance operations team, our maintenance workers that have been responding to calls at our school sites to deal with either some little flooding here or a leak or some of those issues that surface when we have extensive extreme weathers like we've had over the last 3 weeks. Who would have thought that we've had 3 to 4 weeks of rain? And so, but certainly with that rain, there's also benefits and good things that have come out of that. And so along with those challenges, we also recognize the need that we've had for rain within our state and our community as well. And so again, thank you to all of our staff who have helped in managing the dynamics of supporting and entertaining all our little ones in our classrooms where they haven't been able to get out their wiggles during recess time, which I know that all of that is a challenge. So thank you for all of those efforts in supporting our students through that extreme weather. I also want to acknowledge a publication and acknowledge and congratulate OGA for being highlighted in a feature California Journal Education Magazine that highlight the work OGA has been engaged in and alongside our board and in creating environments that value diversity and equity and the unique relationship I think that we have in being able to engage at those levels with our employees and looking for, again, as mentioned earlier, opportunities to build a more inclusive place, to build an environment and a climate and culture that brings that to the surface. We have a ways to go. I think we all recognize that. But I think the positive thing is that the work is on its way and we continue and will continue to create emphasis on how we extend that work in our district. So congratulations. Also, I want to report that we just finished with our bond rating, which is another procedural step in being able to go out and sell bonds that for our bond program that was passed back in November. And so I'm happy to report that as part of that bond rating process, our rating of AA3 was confirmed and upgraded to stable, which indicates that there is outlook for stable conditions on our fiscal front That rating will be published, and I'll share that. We'll post it on our website. That acknowledges the efforts of our board to be proactive and to, at times, take the difficult steps that we need to make sure that we're right sizing and we're moving forward in prudent ways in how we manage our resources and fund resources as well. And so I want to thank Associate Superintendent Evans, as some of the documents that the board received are voluminous and extensive, and I'll acknowledge his many hours and efforts of reviewing all of those documents and making sure everything is absolutely correct, and in order for us to maintain that very strong rating for a district, and also to be prepared next week to go out to market and sell this initial $67 million of bond proceeds, which we're hoping to finalize and complete by the end of next week. So thank you, Associate Superintendent Evans, for your hard work and efforts on that. And in alignment with our ability to maximize our resources in order for us to provide a better educational experience for our students and a stronger learning environment for our staff. Today, we are recognizing through our Vision Award element, maximum use of resources, individuals that are also demonstrating how they are supporting our district with maximizing their resources. And so today, as we acknowledge these individuals, if you happen to be here, it's been a while since we've asked folks to come up and actually handshake or fist bump or elbow bump with our board. But if you are here, we invite you to come up, and if our board can join myself in that acknowledgement for our members that are here. The certificates have already been sent out to the sites, so the school sites do have the actual certificates. But if you happen to be here, fantastic. There'll be an opportunity for a photo op and to put that on our website and social media. And so as we call the recipients, if you're here, please come up and we'll have an opportunity to acknowledge you as well. So with that, I'll ask our board to come down, please. And Board Member Pacheco, I know, is here in spirit and will be doing an air high five or a fist bump.
Yes, that's right.
And so the recipients for maximum use of resources were selected based on the following criteria: actively seeks out and creatively plans for maximum use of time and money, and the effective use of human and material resources in the school and community. Effectively plans and implements for the best use of resources, and provides ongoing and constructive evaluation of the use of resources and the impact of the planned use on students, the classroom, and/or the school environment. All right, so if we can start and before I start, the actual names will also be posted on our social media sites as well as our website. And we'll also include those in our weekly communication that we send out on Mondays from the superintendent's office that identifies all of our recipients with a description of their nominations. So with that, from Child Nutrition Services, Art Garcia, lead delivery driver. Congratulations, Art. From Christopher School, Xochitl Garcia, second grade teacher, and Sarah Piazzola, 7th, 8th grade teacher. From Edenvale Elementary, Katie Lucid, 5th, 6th grade teacher. From Educational Services Department, Jimmy Brown and Trina Trinidad Ramirez. And I believe, even though Jimmy Brown is not able to be here, we have a very special recipient that will be joining us to accept his recognition.
This is Jimmy's son, Damari. So Damari is joining us today to accept on his behalf.
I have one thing to say. Not up for superintendent. You're looking great. Fantastic. Congratulations. Give your dad a big hug, okay?
And thank you also to Jimmy's wife, Tara, for joining us this evening too to accept it on his behalf.
Fantastic. From Frost Elementary, Carolyn Verdugo, RSP teacher. I see Carolyn here. All right, thank you, Carolyn. From Indigo, Holly Innes, parent volunteer, PTA vice president, and Tara Hucano, art teacher. From Ledesma Elementary, Shito Bagat, sixth grade teacher. From Oak Ridge Elementary, Rose Ann Griffin, SDC TK teacher. From Parkview Elementary, Vanessa Wright, third grade teacher. From Sakamoto Elementary, Julia Randazzo, kindergarten teacher. And from Taylor Elementary, Daniel McDonald, sixth grade teacher. Now, Daniel, don't go away. If you can have, don't go away, Daniel. If you can have all of our recipients that are here present, if you can come up. And then that way I can be in one of the photo ops. Congratulations to all of our recipients for maximum use of resources again. And with that, President Hernandez, that concludes my report.
Fantastic. What a great way to start off 2023. Thank you again, Superintendent Monzo, and congrats to everyone. For our closed session report, the board met in closed session to discuss public employee performance evaluation of the superintendent and no action was taken. Public employee discipline release dismissal and no action was taken. and confer with labor negotiator where the board met in closed session to discuss unrepresented management employees, and the board by a vote of 5 ayes, unanimous vote, and 0 nays approved the following. The working conditions for the Oak Grove Management Association, OGMA, that will be modified by the following. There will be a 4% increase to the management and confidential salary schedules for the 2022-23 school year, retroactive to July 1st, 2022. For the 2023-24 school year, the salary schedules for management and confidentials will be increased by 4% and 5% for the 2024-25 school year. These increases are in alignment with what has been approved for OGEA, CSEA, and AFSCME. The district will increase the district contribution to benefits by 0.28% as provided to other bargaining units. There will be an $80 increase to the district contribution for each plan year effective January 1st, 2023, January 1st, 2024, and January 1st, 2025. The contribution will be applied in the same manner in which it was applied for other bargaining groups. Third, the advanced degree stipend for classified confidential administrative personnel, which is equivalent to the existing advanced degree stipend offered to certificated management personnel. 4, cell phone stipend of $100 increased from $60. And lastly, longevity alignment between classified management and certificated management. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work on that. That concludes the closed session report, which brings us to our public hearing. Superintendent Monzo, if you can please introduce the item of negotiated settlement between Oak Grove School District and CSEA.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I'd like to, first of all, acknowledge our bargaining groups for CSEA and also the district. And I'd like to have our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Yvonne Chaitis, introduce this item.
Thank you, Superintendent Monzo and Board President Hernandez. I'm very excited to bring to you the recommendation to approve the tentative negotiation agreement with the CSEA. In this process, I want to thank the current and new president, Maria Arellano, who's here with us today. And she was part of the negotiating team, as well as past president Chuck Baylock, who was the leader for several years of CSEA and their entire negotiation team. It was a process that that we were able to look at the interests of the bargaining unit and be able to have those conversations of the working conditions of our classified staff. And again, I'm just excited to start working with Maria. And yesterday, she had her first meeting with our staff, with HR. I'm not going to steal her thunder because I know she has some updates that she's excited to give. And so this evening we are at another item, not this time because it's the public hearing, we'll ask for a recommendation for action. And at this time it's for the public to have any conversation. Back to you, President Hernandez.
So at this time, I open the public hearing on the negotiated settlement between Oak Grove School District and California School Employees Association, Chapter 412 CSEA.
Any public comment online?
There are no virtual comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, I now close the public hearing on the negotiated settlement between Oak Grove School District and California School Employees Association, Chapter 412 CSEA. This brings us to our general public comment, item 5.1. This is an opportunity for individuals to address the board on any school-related issue which is not a part of today's or this evening's agenda. Are there any individuals who wish to speak to the board at this time? I see one, Bob.
Okay, good evening, board.
Good evening.
Very simple, short public comment tonight. I want to continue to draw the board's attention to the ongoing situation at Davis Intermediate School. I am aware that Superintendent Monzo was out there this morning and that they also had a meeting with OGEA and admins at Davis Intermediate to discuss the ongoing concerns with safety, especially student safety, but also staff safety at Davis Intermediate School. I am also aware that Mr. Monzo is headed out for a site visit, I believe, with a couple of board members. I apologize, I don't know which board members are going, but I know somebody is, and I appreciate that. I want to commend you guys for doing that. I want to encourage this district to come up with an ongoing action plan that is fluid and is able to be implemented, getting teacher and staff input from Davis, getting authentic input, and moving forward and changing the plan as needed so we can continue to address the problems that have been occurring at Davis that our unit members have been telling us about in the OGA meetings and that people have spoken about at this board meeting. So I want to continue to encourage that plan to be created and to be implemented and to be altered as necessary. I also want to encourage Mr. Monzo and board members to make some unscheduled visits to Davis Intermediate School. A scheduled visit is a good thing, and I think it's a good first step. I also think it's good to show up when you're not expected at other times of the day that's not early in the morning. Show up around lunchtime, sometime in the middle of the day when class is in session, and let's see what's going on. Try to get it with your own eyes. So thank you, and I appreciate the steps you've taken so far to address this problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Any other public comments?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last time I was here in November, this same topic about school safety was brought up. And so I did a lot of research, especially regarding violence in schools and in particular school shootings, which isn't something I've had to worry about here. But as a data analyst, I was able to find some really interesting data that the 53 shootings that occurred at middle schools, only 2 were that involved fatalities, involved students. The rest were all people who came from off campus to perpetuate violence on our kids. So that is something that we can actually solve with access control systems that the school is actually considering with the Measure P fund. And to help the school with that, I actually designed and built a system that I can demonstrate to the school district that will prevent someone from accessing the school and allow the school to even hold that person until the police arrive if they deem it necessary. So, and again, that's all for free. But the other issue with school violence is that it's often perpetuated by students on students. And so I found a national expert in school shootings, but I believe that the information that he has would also be viable in identifying children who are exhibiting signs that they may want to hurt other children. So his name's Dr. Peter Langman, PhD. I'll leave this with he provides trainings. He's on the East Coast. And find out from him what things will happen. And again, I just do this because I want to serve the community and make sure that everyone is safe when they go to school.
Thank you, David. Seeing no other comments at this time and none virtually, we will now go ahead and close public comment and move on to the bargaining unit comment. Maria, if you could do us the honors of starting us off tonight.
So, hello, I just wanted to begin by wishing everyone a happy new year. A lot of you may already know me, and for those of you who don't, my name's Maria Arellano. I've been a parent here for 8 years, and I am currently the school secretary over at Del Roble. I'm excited and honored to be taking on the position of president for the California School Employees Association of Oak Grove, Chapter 412. I've been a part of the union. The last 2 years, I served as our secretary. I'm on the negotiation team. And I'm really looking forward to working with the district, the board members, my unit members, Maripaz Berlin and Mike Pointer. And keeping with what CSEA stands for, we just want to improve the lives of our members, the students in the community. I began this role on January 1st. I attended tardy, to the first association president's meeting. It was a little difficult being the secretary, had a parent come in. So I was like, 2 places at one time. I'll have to learn from Maripaz on how to manage my time. But, Maripaz Berlin and Frankie Robles were there from ASME and they both welcomed me. So thank you. And I met yesterday, like Yvonne said, with Sylvia Alvarez. So thank you, Sylvia, for meeting with me. And I'm excited. After our meeting, I really feel that we're moving in the right direction with what's going on with the instructional assistants and the special ed department. I mentioned, I went back and looked at the data. We've had openings for instructional assistants since August. So I was really happy to hear that the HR department is reaching out to some of the current instructional assistants to help them with recruitment videos and having them, make a slight video on what their day and their job entails. And that the director of special ed here, Luciana Parks, started a program that the instructional assistants can reach out virtually to the registered behavior technicians for any support or concerns that they have. So it really, pleases me to see we're moving in the right direction as I step forward. And just, thank you and good evening. Y ahora para los que hablan español, que son parte de mi unión, se lo voy a decir lo mismo en español. Es posible que muchos ya me conocen, pero para que los que no me conocen todavía, me llamo María Arellano. He sido un padre acá en Oak Grove los últimos 8 años y soy la secretaria en Del Roble. Estoy muy emocionada y honrada de asumir el cargo de presidente de CSEA acá en Oak Grove. He sido parte de la unión como secretaria los 2 últimos años y soy parte ahora de negociaciones y ahora como presidente. Tengo muchas ganas de trabajar con el distrito, la junta directiva y los miembros de CSEA para mejorar las vidas de nuestros miembros, los estudiantes y la comunidad. Comencé en este puesto el 1 de enero. Desde entonces he asistido a mi primera reunión de presidentes de asociaciones. Quisiera agradecer a la presidenta de la OGEA, Maripaz Berlin, y a Frankie Robles, el vicepresidente de ASME. Me dieron una bienvenida muy agradecida. También tuve parte con mi primera reunión con los recursos humanos esta semana y gracias a Silvia Álvarez para reunirse conmigo. Y trabajaremos juntos para tratar de llenar todos los puestos de asistente de instrucción que están actualmente disponibles. El equipo de recursos humanos se ha comunicado con los asistentes que ya tenemos para hacer un video para ayudar, traer atención y trabajadores que están cualificados para esas posiciones para venir a trabajar en nuestro distrito. Luciana Parks, la directora de Educación Especial, también ha puesto a disposición unas horas de apoyo virtuales para los asistentes de instrucción en el programa de Educación Especial. Ellos se pueden comunicarse con los técnicos de comportamiento registrados si necesitan algún apoyo. Me alegra mucho ver que estamos, moviendo en la dirección correcta para apoyar a los empleados. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Gracias a usted, Presidente Arellano. Again, congratulations. We're happy to work with you, and we look forward to all the wonderful work that we are all going to do side by side. So at this time, President Berlin.
Good evening. That's going to be a hard act to follow. I'm only going to do it in one language. Good evening, everybody. Happy 2023 and then happy almost Lunar New Year. I just want to give a few updates. So first of all, thank you to the board members for responding to our invitation for our CTA Service Center dinner, just to learn more about CTA and learn about what our perspective is in public education and to continue building relationships. So I'm really pleased that you all will be able to join us. And so I'm super excited. And then for those of you who might not be aware, and thank you Superintendent Monzo for sharing that we were featured in the CTA California Educators Magazine. And it was for the collaborative work that we've done with board members. It was the work that culminated from a year of meetings with board president Hernandez and Pacheco, but also the passage of it and the support of the board members that helped us to execute that. And it's still in the progress of being completely implemented. We're proud of that work, and we value that we can be an example to other school districts in California and maybe beyond. We hold the hope that that collaborative work will continue, not just in this area, but in other areas as well. Thank you also to Superintendent Monzo for accepting your invitation for the superintendent's dinner. That's another way for us to also build our relationship and for you to also learn more about our organization, our functions, and our values in public education, and it'll also work to strengthen our relationship. So we appreciate you joining us. So just a few updates for special ed. We did meet this afternoon in our second special ed joint committee, and it included certificated and classified staff, as well as our special ed director, Luciana Parks, and Assistant Superintendent Bowles, and I believe Assistant Superintendent Chaidez was also in there. We are still advocating to have and fighting for full day, not full time necessarily, but full day IAs in our classroom, and which means having them begin when students arrive and through when students depart our schools. In our meeting, there are discussions of what are the obstacles that are standing in that way. I know that through discussions, through grievance, we've arrived at increasing some of those hours for our instructional assistants. We were also advocating for training, and now we know that that training is happening. And I did question will that training continue moving forward? How will we onboard new instructional assistants coming on board mid-year or again at the beginning of the year? And so that is something that these are things that we need to have ongoing and keep becoming and have it be a part of our culture in Oak Grove, so that we know that whoever is working with our students, whether it's our instructional assistants or teachers, that we have that culture of supporting each other. And it's not just physically being there, but it's also learning all those ins and outs of what it means to support students in the classroom. So a question that that came up was, are we meeting the needs of students and teachers and staff with our current structure right now? And I think maybe in some days we are, and some we're not. From what we've seen the last, at least through the fall of this school year, where we had a lot of our special ed staff come and show up and sign petitions, we are seeing a rise that the current structure is no longer working. And so I'm glad that we have, through that organizing and through those discussions, we've been able to come up with some solutions to that. And just like everything else, it's a work in progress. And so it's a push and pull. And I know that money is involved in there as well. And I'm super happy that Maria is here to support also, so that, because I'm a unionist. She's my sibling, but I'm not CSEA. I can speak on behalf of OGA. And I know that we can work together to find things that are going to work for our students and staff as well. There's some definite obstacles there that it's going to be hard to figure out, but we have to at least begin that process. And I mean, it's time will tell, but also we have to put in that effort, and we have to tell ourselves that we can't rely on doing the same things that we've done in the past. Assistant Superintendent Chidas and I just had that conversation today, and we heard about it from Ken Shelton, that we can't rely on doing things just the way we've done it. It's not working now. It might have worked in the past, but it's not working now. And so we have to rise to that challenge. And what is that going to look like? I don't know exactly what that will look like in the end, but I think we need to explore different options. We won't know until we try. So I appreciate that the work is moving forward, but we're not finished. So I'm not sure what your availability is, but we have one more special ed joint committee meeting. If you're interested in attending or just listening, it's on April 22nd from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and that meeting is virtual. And my last item is in regards to safety. We all experienced extreme weather because of climate change. I am predicting that it will not be the last time that we experience such extreme weather. There was a parent square that came out in regards to one of our schools, Sakamoto, that had lost power. They lost power, I believe, early in the morning. So students came, staff came to work. Sakamoto is one of the newer schools in our school district. So there are some things that are just very automated at Sakamoto. What was reported was that district staff was very quick to arrive, and they worked quickly and promptly to get help to the students and teachers and staff in terms of deploying generators and lights. I think, though, that the event illuminated some other areas that need some more tweaking and more support, such as that some of the interior classrooms are just very dark. It was not only a power outage, but it was also a dark and rainy day. And so there was just not a lot of light coming into some classrooms. Other classrooms, possibly the portables, they kind of suffered different issues. A lot of windows, but no heat. So interior classrooms, not as cold, but very dark. So one of the solutions, I believe, was purchasing more or brighter LED lights. So I think more solutions like that to be prepared for the next time, because I do believe it will happen again. Sakamoto has automated water faucets for, to save on water. In a power outage, there's no water. So there's some solutions that we can, at least knowing that if like students were going into and using the restroom, it was dark in there as well, so they had to leave the door open. We need to find a solution for that. You can't have kids going to the restroom and they were using hand sanitizer. That sanitizes your hands, but that's not sufficient. So there has to be a way to figure that issue out. And I did debrief with Associate Superintendent Evans, and it sounds like there was an inventory that's underway in regards to the needs of each individual area, so that supplies and things could be deployed in a really strategic way, knowing what each classroom needs. So I hope that I hope that we are better prepared the next time that happens. It wasn't, it was predicted that they wouldn't get power until 10 p.m. But, you know, PG&E overestimates, and so they got it around 12:30. When I had first reached out to Associate Superintendent Evans, he had said 10 p.m. and I thought he was like, did I read that right? Was it 10 p.m.? And he said, yes, that's what, you know, that's what PG&E says. But luckily it only lasted 12:30. And I did share that, you know, during that time, their principal had, before they got there, he made a coffee run to try to get everybody comfortable. And then the parents, the PTO, bought pizza for lunch. And so there's just those little gestures in that kind of crisis time that kind of is really helpful and thoughtful. I know that it's not an easy decision to close schools, and usually if it's a power outage, we just kind of wait it out. But I think those small gestures do make a difference. If you're in a classroom, it's hard to teach if it's dark. It's hard to keep the kids focused. So pizza, pepperoni, cheese, that goes a long way. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, President Berlin. Okay, so that concludes bargaining unit comment. Moving us to consent agenda. Superintendent Monzo.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I'd like to recommend the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I move the board approves the consent agenda as submitted.
Second. Public comment, please. Is there any public comment to the consent agenda? Okay.
None virtually.
All right, seeing none, I hear a first and a second. Trustees, roll call, please.
Member Martinez?
Aye.
Member Jaco?
Aye.
Member Pacheco?
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez?
Aye.
President Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to our first action item of the night. Item 7.1, the negotiated settlement between Oak Grove School District and the California School Employees Association, Chapter 412.
Thank you, President Hernandez. This item was earlier introduced as part of the public hearing. And as mentioned by our Assistant Superintendent, Chaitis is now here for action. And I'll defer back to Assistant Superintendent Chaitis for further comments.
Thank you, Superintendent Monzo and Board President Hernandez and our Board of Trustees. This item was earlier a public hearing, and again, just very appreciate the work of all of our classified staff, in this case CSEA, in the process of looking at an agreement for a multi-year increase to the salary schedule, similar to our other bargaining units that you've heard this evening. We are recommending that the Board of Trustees adopt the agreement as presented this evening. Thank you, President Hernandez.
Thank you, Dr. Chaitis. So at this time, may I please have a first and second for a motion?
I move to approve the proposed changes in the agreement between the Oak Grove School District and the California School Employees Association, Chapter 412, and affirm that it meets the requirements under AB 1200 to be able to fiscally implement the agreement.
Second that.
Okay, we have a first and second. May I have a roll call vote?
Member Martinez?
Aye.
Member Jaco?
Aye.
Member Pacheco?
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez?
Aye.
President Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and apologies, I skipped over public comments for this item.
There are no comments virtually.
For 7.2, okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so for item 7.2, I'll pass it along to Superintendent Monzo.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I am thrilled to have this item introduced by our Assistant Superintendent, Amy Bowles. And I know that we have some very special guests that have stayed here for this presentation. So just want to also acknowledge that we understand and realize that this has been long-term in coming. And we appreciate all of our teachers and at all of our schools and working through and being able to get to this point that the board will take tonight in a possible adoption of new instruction materials. So with that, I'll turn it over to further introduce this item for our Assistant Superintendent Bowles.
Thank you, Superintendent Monzo, President Hernandez, and Board of Trustees. As Superintendent Monzo mentioned, this is our extreme pleasure to bring this item up for action and your consideration in regards to the science curriculum adoption. So as Superintendent Monzo said, we have quite a esteemed group of folks here to help present the information around the science adoption process or the pilot process for you. So including Julie Silva, our ESD coordinator in educational services. We have Andy Barham from Burnell, an intermediate school teacher joining us today. All of these teachers participated in the pilot and will share a little of their experience through that. We have 2 lower grade teachers joining us today, one Rebecca Munson from Frost, first grade teacher, and then also Katia Berroca Palacios, a first grade teacher in Spanish dual language over at Edenvale. And then we have an upper grade teacher who also participated in the pilot process, a 5th, 6th grade teacher and tonight's Vision Award recipient for Taylor School, Daniel McDonald. So they'll all be joining us today to share some information and their perspective about the process. So just a brief history walk for you. We did start this process prior to COVID. So unfortunately, the piloting process was disrupted as we felt that during distance learning, it just wasn't conducive for teachers to be piloting new materials in addition to participating in meetings during that time. But we did start it, we paused it, and then we resumed it after we came back in person. The last adoption for science for Oak Grove School District for K-5 was in 2001 and for 6-8 in 2007. So you can see here why we're so excited to bring the opportunity for updates to the curriculum to you. These textbooks, as I was talking to Mr. McDonald before the meeting, I think still list Pluto as a planet. And so we are really excited to be able to bring you something more updated for consideration. However, in the absence of that updated curriculum after NGSS science standards were adopted, we did provide some supplemental resources for teachers to try to help fill a stopgap in between so that they did have some materials to be able to provide to their classes while we're awaiting new materials. And that's Mystery Science, a resource for K-5 classrooms, Rocket Lit that we provided for 4th through 8th grade classrooms, Gizmos, math simulations provided for 6th through 8th grade classrooms, and then Science A to Z that was available to our English learner teacher partners as supplemental material. So we provided those during the time that we are awaiting new adopted curriculum. We had 28 teachers and coaches from a variety of grade levels who participated in the pilot, and they utilized the TIME process, which stands for Toolkit for Instructional Materials Evaluation. And so it was a very in-depth process, a vetting process to take a look at different options that were out there. When we resumed the process as we came back, we had all of our meetings that stayed online that outlined when we had the bargaining agreement or the MOU in place with OGA. So we made sure to do that safely, with the exception of the very last meeting where the teachers voted. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and invite Ms. Julie Silva, Coordinator Silva, to the podium to present. I'm going to pass on my clicker to her.
Good evening, board members, and thank you, Assistant Superintendent Bowles. We are very excited to be here tonight to share with you this process. Again, the toolkit for instructional materials evaluation. It is a thorough process, and you're going to hear about that next from Mr. Barham.
So I am Mr. Barham, Andy Barham. I teach over at Burnell around the corner here, 7th and 8th grade. Thank you all for taking the time to hear this. So I'm going to go over briefly what the time process looks like. So the toolkit for instructional materials was created by an NGSS collaborative, which has many different stakeholders, including like California County Superintendent's Organization and the California Department of Education. We started this way back in the fall of 2018. We started kind of going through the process with the Board of Education adopted the materials. And then as soon as they started doing that, we started kind of going, okay, when can we get into these materials? When can we get new materials into the classroom? In spring of 2019, so next semester, we formed a committee. We started the time process in the district lens. And you can kind of see this is where we developed that district lens there. Now, the district lens is a document that kind of guides the entire process. This is a super important thing that's done at the beginning, where every single, where we have stakeholders from the different grade levels, all the way from K through 8, and they get together and we agree on what's important to our district. And that document is used throughout the pre-screen and the paper screen to guide our decision and making from the beginning, to make sure that the tools align with our values, with what's important and what is needed within our district, kind of at all levels. Let's see here, I have my timeline here in front of me. So we started that process. And then in fall of 2019, we had a district science TOSA that was hired to kind of support that process. It is a lot of paperwork. I have a binder in my classroom that's yay thick. And that process kind of started and went through. In spring of 2020, that TOSA provided PD for the committee members. We did the pre-screen and the paper screen, and then we all went home for like a year and a half because of COVID. And so we resumed that process in fall of 2021. So it was a year and a half later, we got back together with masks on. We went to the county office and they had all the materials there. And that's when we went through the pre-screen, looking at everything real kind of high level paper screen, where we got down into the nitty gritty and looked at, does this align with our district lens? Does this align with what we need? Does this have all the stuff that we want? How does it feel? And then we settled on the HMH, and I can never pronounce this. It's the Houghton Mifflin, I think is how it's pronounced. And Twig were the two that we decided to pilot. We piloted at the end of last school year. So this would have been in the spring of 2022. We piloted the Houghton Mifflin. And then we realized we didn't have enough time to really give Twig a good shake. And so we piloted that this spring. Then we finally got back together and we voted on this. That was December, I think. Yeah, like it was about a month ago. And now we're here and I'm standing in front of you. So that's the high level overview. All of this, and one of the most important parts that we kind of didn't touch on with time, is that this is built with like science principles in mind. Every decision is based on evidence. So if we had to say something, we needed evidence to back it up. It's like, I like this, not just because it feels good, but because it matches with our district lens. And these are the pieces that align with the district lens. These are the pieces that will support new teachers or that have, and we'll talk about this as we go through the grade levels, but we'll talk about how it supported all that. So I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Julie, who's going to go into quite a bit more depth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I want to thank Andy and Catherine McMurray, our science TOSA, who were instrumental in this whole process. Andy went through the training for the time process and really was integral, an integral member of the pilot committee. Their leadership, Andy's and Catherine's leadership, were indispensable to the process. So I just want to thank them. And so there's Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. Andy, I had it right, and then you made me think about it. The programs that were considered, as he said, were Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Science Dimensions, and Twig. All print and hands-on materials were shipped to schools. Training was received. Teachers and students had access to the online resources. All resources were available in Spanish for our dual language classroom. It's important to note that the CDE, when they adopt materials that are eligible for adoption by districts, have 5 criteria. And so the report consists of the 5 criteria you see there on the left. Each one of these criteria also have anywhere from 4 to 15-ish additional features that the programs must meet. Both of these programs met all the criteria in category 1 and with strengths in categories 2 through 5. You can see there that HMH had 13 edits and corrections, literally typos, and then no social content citations. And Twig Science had no edits and corrections and no social content citations.
Ms. Silva, can you explain what a social content citation is?
Yes, there were some of the citations included things that might be racial in effect, perhaps advertisement by a particular company, some of those kinds of things that were included, and some of those there were none in either of those. Thank you. As Andy alluded to his binder, the toolkit, the time evaluation process consists of 5 tools. Tools 1 through 3 were a process for collecting evidence with a focus on student learning and teacher support. Time tool 2 was the opportunity for students to reflect on their experiences. And then tools 4 and 5 wrapped up the process for arriving at a pilot score. These tools became Google Forms. So as we were not able to meet in person, all of these tools were meant to be copies, paper pencil copies in triplicate. Teachers selected 3 learning experiences or activities. All of these forms were filled out 3 times for each one of those lessons, and so you can start doing the math. They became Google Forms, and all of our meetings took place via Google Meet. And so because we were not able to meet in person and do that in hard copies. So here's a look at our timeline. Training with both programs took place. Teachers were trained. There were multiple check-ins, as much for the program as for the process. So there were multiple check-ins on the process as well. As Assistant Superintendent Bowles mentioned, our final meeting and selection was on December 19th. And so at that time, we made a selection, and I'm here tonight with you for the recommendation. I'm going to share a little bit with you about the qualitative data that we gathered. So first being the support for the student learning experience. So this was provided by teachers. So you have here some comments from the Google Forms that just a few of the many, right? So teachers really spoke to the opportunities for rich discussion and listening to one another. the hands-on experience of the lessons, and actual graphing with data as an assessment. So science and engineering practices there. We also collected evidence for teacher support. So in kinder through second, third through fifth, and sixth through eighth. So teachers really spoke to the program being teacher friendly, the digital portion. And these are all comments regarding TWIG. These came from our recommendation. So TWIG is aligned to the Spanish language arts curriculum to benchmark Adelante. And there are specific Spanish language development lessons as well. The program has connections to the Bay Area that students can connect with, and materials and phenomena were engaging. We have those comments there. I spoke a little bit about the student responses. So in K through second, students were interviewed by their teachers. In third through eighth grade, students filled out a Google Forms survey. So lots of communication. Students really spoke to communication collaboration, right? 21st century skills. The simulators, the graphs, the videos were highly engaging to them as well. And as Assistant Superintendent Bowles mentioned, we're going to have the opportunity to hear directly from our teachers. So first, Ms. Munson and Ms. Katia Berrocal Palacios will present to you regarding their first grade experience. Katia will also present in Spanish, followed by Daniel and then Andy. So Rebecca and Katia.
Thank you guys. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Thank you for letting me speak on this. There were some things, first grade did a Museum of Lethology unit. And in that unit, the students became curators of the museum. And then at the end of that, they got to invite their parents and kind of like a gallery walk to see all of their learning that they did. And so this aligns a lot with our SEAL strategies that we use, like a turn and talk and collaborative talk and language development. And so again, this is just my experience. And so I really liked how that aligned because we're already doing SEAL, and then to have this science curriculum come in and use the same strategies that my kids already know. I didn't have to teach them anything new, maybe some slight tweaks here and there, but that was really nice. Some other things that I liked were the three-dimensional learning, being able to explore things, examine them, and then again, just talk about it and explain it. And then it met a lot of the different learning styles that kids had. Like visual learners, they had the videos and the pictures, and then the tactile learners for those hands-on activities. They got to plant seeds and grow plants and monitor them and talk about how theirs is growing and somebody else's isn't. Well, why is that? So that was something that was really nice for me and the students. And then also EL students, they had graphic organizers and they also had sentence screens. So for all of the learners, that was really nice. And then the teacher's manual, and I just think it was very nicely laid out. You didn't have to go and search for things. It really was just open it, look there. Okay, that's my piece that I need, kind of thing. So that was really nice to have it just laid out in front of you. The online piece, that was organized well too. I was able to go in there and just, okay, that's what I need, click, click, click. And they had online pieces that you could actually do them online. If some of your kids are older, mine are first grade, so, but they had that. It was very nicely organized. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the materials bin. You have no idea how much they saved my life. They literally handed you a bin and had everything in it. I mean, I was sitting down gathering things for the lesson and said, oh my gosh, I have to get up and get paper clips. No, I remember reading that. That was in there. Even paper clips, when they know that you have them, but they provided it for you. So we didn't have to go take extra time to go and look for it. So I just wanted to kind of share some of my experiences, the things that I liked about it, and how it aligns with SEAL already, what we're doing, so we can just kind of supplement that. So thank you for letting me share tonight, and Katya is going to go ahead and share.
Thanks, Rebecca. Buenas noches, miembros de la Junta Directiva. Mi nombre es Katia Berrocal Perlacios. Soy maestra de primer grado del programa bilingüe de la escuela Edenville y hoy voy a compartir mi experiencia en el uso del programa TWIC y de sus recursos en español. Como bien lo mencionó Rebeca, las actividades diseñadas en el programa TWIC se pueden integrar con las unidades y estrategias de SEAL. Por ejemplo, al final del módulo, el módulo que trabajamos, el Museo de la Plantología, los padres son invitados a participar en una visita al museo que los estudiantes han creado en la clase. Esta actividad encaja perfectamente con la actividad de culminación en la unidad de SEAL, en la que los estudiantes tienen que crear una maqueta para presentar lo aprendido. Este solo es un ejemplo de cómo las diferentes actividades se pueden integrar en ambos programas. Además, se desarrollan las 3 dimensiones del aprendizaje científico, promoviendo la habilidad de pensamiento crítico, la argumentación, la investigación. Y recuerdo que los estudiantes estuvieron muy enganchados en la actividad de la exploración de seres vivos y no vivos, y también cuando trabajaron en equipo, categorizando y clasificando las tarjetas de diferentes seres vivos y no vivos en diferentes categorías. También el programa en español presenta el material con un lenguaje auténtico e información actual. Como una herramienta adicional, aparte de lo que ya ofrecen, presenta un noticiero semanal al que le llaman el reportero científico, que promueve la participación y el diálogo de los estudiantes, activando sus conocimientos previos y compartiendo los que ya conocen. Podemos añadir que apoya a la ampliación del lenguaje, permitiendo que los estudiantes usen terminologías provenientes de diferentes regiones, de diferentes países, y de esa manera incrementan su vocabulario científico académico. Por último, provee libros de lecturas diferenciados que se pueden usar en el trabajo en grupos pequeños o en lectura guiada, y asimismo cuenta con unos libros, unos cuadernos de trabajo coloridos acorde a la edad del niño, que incluyen organizadores gráficos e ilustraciones que ayudan al aprendizaje de manera didáctica. Gracias. Now Daniel will share his experience.
Thank you, Katya. Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm Daniel McDonald. I'm a 5th and 6th grade teacher, and I'm really excited to share about TWIG with you all tonight. The 5th grade unit was called the H2O response team. So all of the 5th grade students, and in my case, 5th and 6th grade students, because I'm a combo, they were all hydrologists. So we were studying fresh water. We were studying how humans have impact on our water supply. And I'm actually in a kind of a cool, unique situation because I looped about 12 of my students from last year. So many of them were able to pilot the other curriculum and this one. And so we got to have a conversation about which one they preferred, and they all preferred this one, which was kind of cool. So it was nice to be able to compare that way. Students were able to investigate water conservation strategies using a design process. They created a watershed model. And so they got to have a hands-on experience of forming, quote unquote, earth. And then we got to drop water on it and see how different pollutants can form and flood certain areas, which provided a lot of cultural relevancy for here in California, especially with the weather that we've been having. And to me, that kind of feels like a call to action. It really got them thinking about, wow, how do my habits with my water, how much water am I wasting? What can I do to help our state, help our country, conserve the water? The differentiation was super clear. As Rebecca said, the teacher manual, it's all laid out with English language learner strategies, all of these different sort of strategies to differentiate, to make sure all kids have access and the opportunity to be successful. One of my favorite parts about this curriculum is the flexibility between going in the print versus the digital, and how those were so seamless to go back and forth between the two. There were a lot of amazing videos and images. And what I loved about this curriculum specifically is that there were a lot of real images. A lot of times we see diagrams, but to me, it's so much more powerful to see the actual picture of what we're talking about. And it really helped my student who's a newcomer this year to the country. It was really wonderful to see him be so successful with the watershed model that we did. Just removed the language barrier, and he just got to be right in there with all his classmates, and was able to meet the learning target. It was quite amazing. Another thing that they were able to explore was how much fresh water it took to create like a banana, or how much water it takes to raise a cow, for beef or whatever. And their minds were blown. I was like, what? It takes how much water to make one lemon? That's insane. So it got them thinking about waste in the cafeteria, for example, and at home, really make sure you're eating your food and, you're not wasting fresh water, things that they don't often think about. So thank you all for hearing me tonight. And now Andy's going to share his experience.
Hello, everybody. Again, I'm back. Ouch, shocked me. Actually, what I'm talking about is non-contact forces, but that was a contact force there. So in 8th grade, what was really neat, what I really loved about Twig, and this was just kind of throughout, and specifically with the module that we looked at here, is the way that they integrated different topics together. In 8th grade, what we piloted is we looked at non-contact forces. This is like gravity and electromagnetism, like shocking yourself on a microphone after not picking your feet up all the way when walking to it. And it was a really interesting way to go about it. A lot of times these are really kind of hard concepts to marry, and like in many curriculum, they're not. Within Twig, what was cool is they put the students in the role of a consultant for a movie production company. And so they were like, okay, how can we, there was a director and they needed us to defy gravity. So how can we defy gravity, a la Back to the Future, the first one, I think, when he goes, whenever, we have the hoverboard. And so there was a lot of hands-on activities that were really easy to do, go back and forth. The students were very engaged. They started getting the concept of like field lines. And then we moved on to, can we simulate gravity on other planets? So like, how would you simulate gravity on Mars? And then we move on to how do we store energy? And so this was all this idea. And the idea of storing energy was examined, like how does a stunt person fall and how do you dissipate that energy so they don't get hurt? And so these are all kind of not, hopefully you're not falling, in the real world like a stunt person does, but these are real world jobs that we're starting to put kind of the older students in. It's like, this is a career thing that you could actually do. And these are real problems that people need to solve. And a big part of it for me, because I love the science and engineering practices, I love the process of iteration. And these had iteration built in. So students go in and they would try something, it wouldn't work. So how do I fix this? What do I need? How do I go to the next step? Because that process of overcoming like these small barriers is so important in the learning process and becoming lifelong learners. That it was one of the things that was really great about the way that Twig pushed kind of gently and built it so that there could be success kind of at all levels. I loved that how clear, like it was already spoken to, how clear the lessons were laid out, the 3 dimensions of, NGSS were there. Just kind of throughout, it was really well laid out. It was very clear. If I was a brand new teacher and you handed this to me, I'd be like, oh, this would have been amazing. And that's one of the things I loved, the representation, like the student identification representation, whether it was just kind of across the board. It was some of the best that I saw throughout a lot of the curricula that we looked at. And most importantly with looking at this, and I don't know if we're going to speak to it later, but I love the idea, especially as a 7th and 8th grade teacher, of having a consistent program all the way through so that I can capitalize on what's been taught by an elementary and they don't have to relearn programs, and we can focus on content and moving forward rather than, okay, this is how we have to use this tool and it's different. And so that's one of the things that I'm really excited about. That's all I have to say about that. I think I'm handing it off to Janae now, who's going to speak a little bit more to whatever she's going to speak to.
All right. Well, if science curriculum brings out this much enthusiasm in teachers, imagine the engagement in the classroom with students. So I'm Janae Anna, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and I'll be going over the results of the materials pilot. So teachers used tools in the time materials to rate the materials, and the results were fairly close with Twig rating a little bit higher. And that's why you were hearing from the teachers about their experience with the Twig curriculum. The pilot team met on December 19th. This was the final pilot committee meeting. And in the process took a poll, and Twig was a clear front runner in this poll. So you can see that, there we go. This is the Twig results. 90% of our teachers strongly agree to support Twig, as opposed to the 60% from the HMH science. We did have a voice of some voices that were feeling that they were not fully in support. And so digging a little deeper to build consensus, we did hear some concerns from primarily middle school. And the concerns were in the areas of the digital interface for grading, leveled readers not available at that level, and using the teachers in middle school who participated in the pilot were very strong advocates for being able to continue to use teacher created units and supplemental resources that are provided by the district. So we stayed after we had a small group continue on with the meeting to stay with the middle school teachers and address the concerns. And ultimately, we did come to consensus for the Twig curriculum, that would be the best fit for our district out of the two. So with that, looking further into what would this cost for our district to purchase Twig science. And so the cost of the curriculum includes consumable and non-consumable materials, in addition to online access. The cost for an 8-year commitment was $2.5 million. Now I'm going to pass it on to Assistant Superintendent Bowles for the final recommendation.
Thank you, Director Anna, and thank you again to all of the teachers who stayed this evening to share their experiences with the pilot. All the teachers, but especially want to note our elementary school teachers who are in the middle of conferences right now with parents and negotiating or spending their time with that at the end of the day, and still joining us today with an exemplary presentation of their experience. So you've heard a little bit about the in-depth vetting process, the piloting process, the timeline, and just the thoughtfulness and intentionality. I think that Julie and Janae were able to lead together with our teacher leaders throughout the district, the 28 teachers who participated. And so based on their experiences, their thoughts and their feedback, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of the Twig Science curriculum as presented.
Thank you so much again, Assistant Superintendent Bowles, and thank you everyone for your contributions, your time, for going through this pilot and all the ups and downs that comes with a big decision like this. I want to open the floor first for public comments before we go to trustee questions. Okay. Bob Perla.
Good evening again, board. I just kind of want to say on behalf of myself and many who feel like me, it is about time. Mara Paz and I were joking just a little bit ago about there's been just a couple of scientific and technological advances our last adoption, just maybe count them on one hand, I'm not sure. But, I really do think and appreciate that we're taking this step. And I really would like to encourage the board never to wait this long again before going through an adoption process. That being said, I also want to put on your mind, I know I'm being greedy right now. And I just talked to Mrs. Bowles about this a little bit ago, but we also need to start now thinking forward about our math curriculum coming up next year. We have to start improving all of our curriculum in OGSD. So we have, a social studies curriculum got adopted a couple years back. We're hopefully moving forward on this science curriculum pending board action. We really, really need to move forward on our math curriculum. At this point, it is of poor quality. And so it's time to start thinking about that. And I understand that there are some timeline issues and some possible updating of the state standards. We don't want to waste money, but we also don't want to procrastinate when a need is very much present in our math curriculum. So thank you. And I hope you move forward with this.
Thank you so much, Bob. And again, just very grateful for all of your guys' senses of humor and energy that y'all brought today. I'm very happy that all of you teach or serve our students in some capacity. So at this time, I don't believe there are any further public comments virtually.
None virtually.
Okay, or in person. So at this time, I'll open up the floor for any questions or comments from trustees. In any order, yeah.
Oh, well, I want to say thank you to all the educators who came out and spoke and shared your experience, especially after a long day, a long pandemic, long rainy season that we've had here. I'm excited, like you all made me excited, and math is not my strong suit. And I'm a graduate of Burnell. Hi, Burnell. Mr. Judnick was my science teacher. Mr. Judnick, if you're out there, thank you for making science fun. And I can only imagine if I had NGSS or if I had the TWIG curriculum, I might have gained so much more from my science classes. But I want to just say, highlight a few things that I heard you say as a teacher myself that I find also really valuable. Just bringing up one that, it caused students to reflect on their own habits and making the connections between what they're learning and their lived experiences. I think that, absolutely helps with retention, right? But also the engagement in the classroom and beyond. Mentioning that students were curators, right? Putting them in the seat of being able to develop and be innovative and thoughtful with their work. And also having the multimedia methods for learning is incredibly important for every curriculum. So that was exciting to hear. And then also really the continuity, right? There's nothing more frustrating than not knowing what the students learned before or having totally different systems and software that you spend a lot of time having to front load and teaching just technical pieces before you get to the content. And so having something that builds and having that continuity throughout, I think is incredibly valuable. So I want to just take the time to, say that it's heard and received and appreciate you for lifting up those things and also appreciate the time that it took. I do just have a question. I'm just curious. Now I'm just being nosy. But when you're piloting a program, you're taking on more work, right? Because you're doing the planning and the prepping. And so I'm just wondering, what do you anticipate, when this is rolled out for all of the educators, is there a need for additional planning time, or was the planning time you had sufficient? What was that process like for you all?
I do know, I can speak a little bit, and maybe if any of the teachers or Ms. Silva want to chime in as well, that we did have meetings collaboratively together just to get feedback from teachers in terms of planning time together. I'm not sure if they had any extensive planning time with the experiences that they taught. However, they did all get trained together. And so we want to make sure that, and we already have that planned, hopefully pending board approval for actually even this last professional development day of this year, so that teachers can get materials in their hands even before the end of the year, to do kind of like a soft opening and then a training in April. And then we can hit the ground running in the fall. And then we'll, of course, with any new teachers, bring them up to speed with training as well. And so, we'll definitely be keeping in touch and ongoing training as we develop the contract with the publisher that that the board ultimately approves. We'll make sure that that training is folded in ongoing, as well as some planning time that we can maybe utilize at the site level as well for any kind of training and collaboration.
Thank you. And I think that's great. We need the planning time. I think because it's so well structured and laid out, and you just open it and you can get the lay of the land, having that like online training helps with that. I don't think it's going to be super expensive that you're going to need days and days and days. Like maybe some other curriculum, where you got to read, right? This is literally laid out for you. So, a couple of days, that kind of thing, and having the materials, I think before we go on summer break is going to be valuable, so that people can dig in and dive in and see what's happening. So it didn't take me that long. I online, and then just some time kind of digging. I don't, anybody's going to kill me and be like, we need the time. We do, but with this being so nicely structured, it'll be.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I also wanted to lift up to something that Andy shared, and that was a really big part of the feedback, is just how user-friendly it would be for new teachers as well, to just open the box and get going, and for them to be able to have something, out of the box that they can utilize from day one.
Awesome. Yeah, just to echo what my colleague said, I think typically when we see teachers in the boardroom, they're here to talk about how they're exhausted and strained, understandably so. And it was so refreshing to see you guys so excited about something. It really was. And just like Dr. Jaco, a lot of the points stood out to me. The first thing that really stood out and that I heard throughout the presentation was how immersive this program seems to be, which is very exciting for me, being a mother with 2 children in the district. I heard that it was equitable for our children, specifically those with language barriers that are new to the country and the district. And then I heard that it was easily accessible for our teachers with things like kits to get started. So I'm super excited about that. But thank you for making this one of the most notable presentations that I've had, the best presentation of the year so far. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the work and the excitement and the energy that came into this presentation.
If I can jump in really quick, I also want to echo what my colleagues have said. I'm really excited to vote in favor of this curriculum adoption for science. It's certainly a long time coming, and very necessary for a school district located in the Silicon Valley, where many of us really do wish our babies to have access to science-based careers if they wish to pursue those paths. And obviously having a really powerful science curriculum from as young as TK is an essential key in making that happen. As a bilingual teacher myself, I was very happy to see and hear the amazing presentation from our bilingual teachers from Del Roble. So just thank you so much for finding something that is accessible for our bilingual teachers. As we all know, our bilingual teachers, they work incredibly hard, oftentimes teaching the same amount of subjects as their English only counterparts ×2. And they oftentimes have to create all of their curriculum in the translated languages. So to see that they don't have to do that is honestly just revolutionary, I think, for a lot of bilingual teachers. So shout out to all of you, and thank you to the whole team for making this happen.
Thank you, Member Pacheco. I definitely want to highlight as well. I loved hearing about the different modalities for our students who might learn in many different ways, right? It sounds like from the student feedback, there's a lot of graphs and strong visuals that support the learning. So I really appreciate that, as well as just working with mirroring almost what we do with the SEAL program. I definitely appreciate that. And so with that in mind, I did have a couple questions, just out of curiosity. And Bob, you sort of brought this up in my mind too, when we were talking about the math curriculum, because I am interested if, with TWIG or HMH, were there some opportunities where they sort of guide where we could see the more cross curriculum collaboration happening, or were there moments where we could pull in the math and working with the science curriculum the way that they've set that up? So I was just curious if I could hear a little bit more about that, if anyone wants to share. It seems like there was from the couple heads saying yes, which is great. But I was just curious about that, how user-friendly that was.
I can start, and then if we have any teachers who can add their experiences as well. I know Ms. Silva alluded to this in the presentation, that TWIG Science aligns seamlessly the Spanish language arts standards and the benchmark Adelante ELA Spanish language arts SLA curriculum that they utilize. So I know that for sure is something that has been brought up through discussions, and I don't know if there's any other input or experiences to speak to. Yes.
Thank you very much. We're all jumping, right? Can you see us jumping, getting ready to respond? The cross-cutting concepts of the NGSS do that seamlessly, and that's well defined in the program. So the cross-cutting concepts cover concepts in math. They are meant to cover, address the needs cross-curricularly. So arguing from evidence, right? Data and graphing analysis, that's math, that's language arts, that's ELD. The cross-cutting concepts do that, and those are well embedded and really highlighted for teachers to be able to do that through their teaching of NGSS. And now I'm going to let Andy speak to that a little bit more.
Thank you, Julie. Julie actually was saying exactly what I was saying. In my piece, I briefly mentioned, I said that the 3 dimensions, I threw out that fun buzzword, of NGSS are clearly called out. I have been like just immersed in kind of bathing in NGSS for many years. The 3 dimensions, one of them is the cross-cutting concepts, and that's clearly called out in each lesson. It says like, this is what we're doing, and this is how you can pull in math, and this is how you can pull in like just various things. They're not all present in every lesson, but they're present, like math, well, English ones are in every lesson. Math are in most, history are in some. There are so many out there. There's like career connections and that sort of stuff. And that's one of what they call the 3 dimensions of NGSS. One of the other ones is what's called the science and engineering practices. You heard me talk about that. And then the other part of that 3 dimension is what's called the disciplinary, DCI, disciplinary core ideas. And that's just the topics. So those are the kind of the 3 things that make up I think it's a Bueller diagram. It's not a Venn diagram. It's got more than 2. But I think that's what it makes it up. It's something like that. Anyways.
Yeah, thank you. The other question I had, and y'all sort of mentioned this with just how user-friendly it is, but I am curious of, were there parental components where we would be able to bring in parents, through the instruction when, their kid goes home? What does that sort of look like? Were parents involved in this part yet with the committee? Were they a part?
Yeah, I'll have Ms. Silva speak to that. She had some connection there, in addition to, I think, what Ms. Munson mentioned, like gallery walks and inviting parents in to the units.
Yes, thank you. So opportunities to bring parents in. So another parallel with our SEAL thematic units are parent letters, opportunities to reach out to parents and share with them what their students are going to be learning about. And then gallery walks. So depending on the grade level and opportunity and the content. So the opportunity to invite parents in for example, in 1st grade, where the students are curators. inviting them in. So there were opportunities there for, and there was parental involvement. I think that answered your question.
And additionally, I believe Coordinator Silva shared with me today to clarify that through the process of piloting as well, there was an outreach to the parents in the classrooms where that piloted to give them an opportunity to give some feedback, if any, to what their children are experiencing in the classrooms through the pilot as well.
As we typically in a pilot, we would have had the materials here. This was not a regular pilot process as we did it in a pandemic. So we, for both programs, we were able to provide the parents of students who were in classrooms that were piloting. We shared links with them to give them an opportunity to look at it through Parents Square.
Okay, thank you. And I think I see, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, of course, please.
Mine's really quick. The school that I teach at, we're not a SEAL school, so we don't have those kind of units that are being talked about. But what is really nice about TWIG is that there is the online access through Clever. And so the students know how to, well, in theory, they know how to log in at home. So through Clever, they could show their parents what they're doing in science class, which I think is really beneficial.
Yeah, it's great.
And another thing that I just wanted to kind of mention, that parent involvement. We don't necessarily, sometimes we send home letters and we invite them in, but not only that is after we did a couple units and we were planting our seeds and watching them grow, you know, they're coming home and they're talking to their parents. So one of the parents sent in an avocado seed, you know, said, hey, aren't you studying seeds in class? And so she brought in the avocado seed and I said, well, yes, let's take a look at it. So now we're growing an avocado tree because I've done that myself. So I got to explain to them and show them pictures of what I've done. So there is that parent, like they're going to be so excited that they're going to go home and tell their parents, and then their parents are going to help make that connection too at home. And then another thing too is my son who's 25, I was telling him about it. He stopped on the side of the road and got cotton seeds. Okay. And pick the cotton. So I got to give the cotton to the kids and they're like, I wasn't going to give them seeds, but they're like, can we have a seed? I'm like, sure, you want the seeds? Go grow some cotton. So it's like, I'm just saying, you know, there's more opportunities. They're going to go home and tell their parents and they're excited about it. And so they can continue that learning at home, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone, and for answering our questions. Are there any more questions or comments from trustees before we move to a motion?
Just a quick question. It's going to be 2.5 million over 8 years. This can be paid with one-time, with funds that can be used for one-time expenditures. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And in some of the plans that we've already brought forward to the board, you may recall for those of you who are here present that we had those embedded into those plans. And so we have been forward thinking and budgeting for this expenditure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Pacheco.
Just one last
Closing
area of feedback. And again, just gratitude for everybody who participated in this pilot, and echoing a lot of the comments that were made already by the board. And, you know, we know that when there is a hook and there's relevance in terms of what kids are learning and they understand the why, they can apply to the real life and what they're seeing around them, that's when really that content stays with them and they have a deeper, stronger understanding of one, their interest to continue to explore and learn, and retaining the information as well. And so I think I just want to thank all of you for really lifting all of that up, as was mentioned earlier, and helping our students not just teach for the moment, but teach for the long term, and building that long-term understanding as a learner as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Monsell. So at this time, may I please have a first and second for a motion?
I move to approve the adoption of the TWIG science curriculum as presented.
I second. All right. We have a first and second. May I please have a roll call vote?
Member Martinez?
Aye.
Member Jacob?
Aye.
Member Pacheco?
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez?
Aye.
President Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, fantastic. Congratulations again. Thank you so much for your hard work. And I know I speak for all of us when I say we can't wait to see it in action. That concludes our action items for the night, bringing us to our first and only information item, the OGSD California dashboard results of 2022. Superintendent Monzo.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I'm happy to provide a brief introduction to this item. As you know, we have had, with the pandemic, a suspension of some of the requirements related to the dashboard, some of the SBAC requirements for testing, and we're kind of at a restart of all of that process. So like to have our Assistant Superintendent Bowles further introduce this item, and also our guest presenter for tonight as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Monzo and President Hernandez and Board of Trustees. So as Superintendent Monzo mentioned, through the COVID pandemic, we've had a disruption to some of the reporting of state indicators for the California dashboard. The California dashboard is our accountability system, accountability measures for all districts in the state of California. We have been presenting our local indicators to you throughout the pandemic. However, some of these state indicators that were paused have been restarted. And so we just had a release statewide of state indicators through the CAA dashboard in December of 2022. And so it's my pleasure to introduce or bring back up to the podium Director Janae Enna to take us through this information item.
All right, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Bowles, Superintendent Monzo, President Hernandez, and Board. I thank you for the opportunity to share our most current results for our statewide accountability tool that uses multiple measures to measure student success, and that is the California School Dashboard. So again, I'm Janae Enna, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. Can you go to the next slide?
Stuck here. Let's see if I can escape. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so before I dive into our results, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of the California dashboard. So like I said, this is multiple measures. There are actually 11 in total. So we have state indicators. That's what I'm presenting on tonight. We also have local indicators. There are 5 local indicators. What's not up on the slide is also school climate. We reported these in the spring and presented to the board in June on our local indicators. So the results that we're seeing tonight are from the 21-22 school year, and the state indicators were just released in mid-December. That's why we're not seeing them until now. For the state indicators, there are 6. So for the test scores, it actually is broken into ELA and math. They also rate us on chronic absenteeism, suspension rates, English learner progress. Graduation rates don't apply to us. And also there are college and career indicator, and that is not reported this year. So tonight we will review the first 4 of the state indicators that you see. And also to mention, this is public information and it can be found at the website there, California or CASchool-dashboard.org, and any school in the state or district in the state can be searched for on the website and pull up their results. So that is public. So I'm skipping one. No? Okay. All right. So just to give you an overview of what, because there have been some changes, so what the California model used to look like 2019 and prior, each state indicator is measured a little bit differently. So how we come up with the, just depending on what the indicator is, how they come up with the status is dependent. So in the past, the score reflected both the status and the change from the previous year. And you may remember, those dials. This gives the schools and districts the opportunity to reflect growth as part of as part of success. And you may remember that we had this like 5x5 grid. So depending on what the status was of the measure and the indicator, it also just gives you an opportunity to weigh in on the growth from the previous year. So there would be a status and change. But we've had, as mentioned, 2 years of interruptions. So this year is going to be a little bit different in terms of results. And like I said, these results are from the 21-22 school year. So the first piece is we'll start with the academic indicators. And the biggest change is that they're reporting status only. So this is like a new baseline because we don't have, from the past 2 years, we don't have change to go off of. There's not going to be a 5x5 grid. And instead of those colors that were previously reported in those dials, now it's only purple and it is cell phone bars. For academics, just want to share with you a little bit about how the status is calculated. So, so the status is calculated, shows you the student group performance relative to grade level standards in language arts and math. This is from this Smarter Balanced assessment, this CASP assessment the students take in the spring, and that's for our 3rd through 8th graders. CAW, the alternative assessment, is also part of the measurement. And so far, not yet, and to be determined when this is going to happen. So far, the CAST, the California Science Test, has not been included in our results, but we will be ready when that does happen. So this isn't just an example of what those cell phone bars I was saying, the results and the status will look like with the purple. Superintendent Bowles, we're missing some slides. Are you guys seeing that on your end too? Yeah, okay.
Let me go ahead and take a look at. I pulled up final dashboard for presentation. The agenda.
And skip if there's any slide of that. Are you working off of the Google Doc? I mean the Google slide?
Yes.
Yeah,
There are
everyone skip those.
I apologize. Yeah, no problem.
My apologies, board. And then if we could go back to,
I'm trying to figure out how to unskip it. Yes, of course. Stuff, unskip slides. I have to unskip them one at a time, so just give me 1 second. Control these. There's a lot that was skipped. No, I'm unskipping. I'm unskipping. Oh. Oh. You know what? I think it's still from that one. Did you skip something?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were going to be using the light, the Google slide. Oh, she's got it.
You got it?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for allowing for the interruption. We're also touring these dashboard results with secretaries, community liaisons, principals, and for some of those groups, we don't want the for condensing the presentation. So some of the slides were hidden.
All right.
For that. Okay.
We can take it from.
Let's go to slide 3. I'm going to backtrack a bit if board members, if you don't mind, just to review some of the missing content.
Let me go ahead and share the screen, and I think we are in business.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, so going back to the overview of what's reported, as mentioned, the state indicators, the state reports on various student groups. So we don't not only get a status rating for all students, but there are 8 student groups under race and ethnicity, and 5 groups identified by special programs. And the reason the state does this is in order to increase a focus on equity. Okay. And next slide. Okay, and then with those student groups, so as long as there are 30 or more students in that student group that I just mentioned, they will have a status, with the exception of foster youth and homeless. That threshold is at 15 or more. So with the student groups 11 through 20, if they have 11 through 29 students, we won't get a status level, but we will still have data reported. If there's a student group with 10 or fewer students, there's nothing reported to protect the confidentiality of the student. Okay, so those are the student groups. I'm going to skip through the California model prior to 2019. We are going back to our academic indicators. And this is where we're going to start with the reporting. Already spoke a little bit about the changes for 2022. It's status only, using only one color, purple. And so how this is calculated for academics is rather than just looking at the percentage of students who are at or above standard versus the percentage of students who are below standard, the status looks at how far students are from that standard cut point, how far they are below and how far they are above, and takes an average. So the status is calculated as an average for all students or an average for the students in that group, and gives us a numerical value of the distance from standard based on those cut points for what standard is. So just to highlight that a little bit, for example, these are the ELA possible scores for language arts for each of the grade levels, and highlighted in red are the cut points. So the scores range from the lowest score in 3rd grade being 2,114 to the highest grade, so the highest score in 3rd grade being 2,623. So that cut point, wherever a student's scale score falls, if they're at standard, they would be 24 or 32, or they're above or below. So the state takes all those scale scores, averages them out, gives a distance from standard. Another way to look at that is here, this is a 5th grade math example. So the student scored 2,505 on their scale score. They were below that standard cut point. So the distance from standard is negative 23 points. Okay, math and language arts have different cut points and kind of a different scale. These are the cut points for language arts and math on the next slide. So you can see that a student who is at or let's say a student who is at standard, or if our average is right at standard, then that would give us a medium status. Okay. And then math, the cut points are a little bit different. So just so you have that background knowledge of how it's determined, what our status is and what those points mean, that's what they mean. So here's our results for language arts. How did we do? When you go to the dashboard results online, this is kind of the view that you're going to see. Thank you, Superintendent Monzo. a little dim there, but you can see that our results are at the medium, and our results are 4.3 points below standard, and the state that actually is higher than the state, which is in the low status area. And then for each, what the state does is gives you sort of an overview of all the status levels and which student group falls into each of those status levels. You can click on those student groups to see more information and get the specifics for each of those student groups. Here's another view, a little bit easier to see, and shows you just a different view. So it's the same data. And again, we look at this with an equity lens. And for our math status, our district for all students is in the low status. And for the state, it's also low. But our distance from standard was actually higher than the state. Most of our student groups fell in the low range. And there's another way to look at that. And again, with the student groups that you see no reporting, that's because of the number of students who are in that group. Another academic indicator that we look at, it's measured a little bit differently, is English learner progress. So that status is measured by students moving up on their LPAC summative assessment, moving up by performance levels. So our results here are medium, and also for the state, it's medium. Our percentage of students making progress, at least one performance level, was very similar to the state. Okay, and then the next area, the next priority is academic engagement. And so for this next area is where the indicators reverse the desired results. So whereas we don't desire a high status, we actually aim low. And that area here is chronic absenteeism. The majority of our students had a status of very high. Remember, this data is from the 21-22 school year last year. The district average, the district also scored very high. The average was just a couple of percentage points better or improved than the state. So the state also has a very high chronic absenteeism rate at 30%. The next priority is conditions and climate. And again, here we're striving for low. So under conditions and climate, we are rated on our suspension rate. And our suspension rate is actually the same status as the state, which is medium, but our rate was lower at 2.1% versus the state's 3.1% for suspension. Then our student groups are listed under their status as well. So with all of these ratings, we see we have bright spots and we have areas of improvement. And I just wanted to share with you that the state has a system of support system in place for districts to address the disparities among the student groups. And that's called differentiated assistance. In order to qualify for differentiated assistance, student group performance, so looking at various student groups, were they very low on both ELA and math, or very low on English learner progress indicator, and very low on graduation rate, or very high on chronic absenteeism. And the third one is very high on suspension rate. So any of the student groups who got 2 of those criteria qualifies for differentiated assistance. And so for Oak Grove, for 2022, we did qualify for foster youth in the areas of chronic absenteeism and suspension rate, homeless youth for academics and chronic absenteeism, and students with disabilities for academics and chronic absenteeism. We are participating in differentiated assistance led by the County Office of Education. And they are taking us through a system improvement process to identify the root causes of the disparities and create and carry out an action plan to address the issues. We just started this process last Friday, and it will continue for all of 2023. That's a group of, in Ed Services, it is led by Assistant Superintendent Bowles, all three of the directors, and various education partners with different roles in the district. So we're very pleased to be part of that process and to look systemically at what we can do. So that concludes my presentation, and I welcome any questions or comments at this time.
Thank you so much, Janae.
Thank you.
I had a question about our first group up there, foster youth. So for math and ELA, I see that we weren't able to get data from them in regards with this indicator, but then we do have information for chronic absenteeism and suspension. So is it that there's not enough students taking the ELA and math test for us to be able to get data, and it's less than 10? Is that what happens if, because I was wondering, it's not like our numbers are fluctuating in terms of.
It's because for the academic indicators, it's only 3rd through 8th grade students who take it. And so when you look at just 3rd through 8th graders for foster youth, they don't have the N size to be able to get in the academic indicator as a status.
Oh, I see. So there is that much of a difference when we're not, okay.
The group is small, yet it's big enough in these areas for us to get a status. But when in academic performance, when you take out the TKK first and second graders who also have that eligibility, then it's not enough of a big enough N size for us to be able to get a status in that area. Again, as Dr. Anna pointed to, just the confidentiality with that smaller group of students. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That helps clarify that change. Any other questions, trustees?
I have some questions. So my questions have to do with chronic absenteeism. And I understand that you were working with Santa Clara County Office of Education staff to try to figure out what are the root causes of not just that, but other state indicators and local indicators. But I was wondering if, through the history of transportation and the status of transportation in our district, is there any thoughts or opinions on our current bus routes or our bus fleets or the access that our most high need student groups have to buses in our district? Is there any impact with that? And or is there any relationship with that to, if you had to hypothesize?
I'll start and I'll have Ms. Bowles if she has any further comments on that. So as you know, in terms of chronic absenteeism, we've been in dynamics of kind of the balance of stay home if you're ill, if you have a sniffle, if you think that you may be contagious. I think our system, not just in our district, but throughout our educational system, has exercised a great deal of caution around making sure that they weren't impacting other students by attending school. And so I think part of that chronic absenteeism, as you saw statewide, is at a 30% rate for the state, right? And so, it's one of those double-edged swords of we need everybody here, but we've also messaged that, hey, we want to also be prudent and cautious about if you're not well, staying at home, because chronic absenteeism wasn't an issue or a factor pre-pandemic, and there weren't any changes or differentiations around transportation. And part of the intent of the rebounding is when the rebounding was done after the school consolidation was really to focus and emphasize neighborhood community schools where there wasn't that distance as prior to that shift, where we had pockets of communities. For example, the community at Glider, there were a pocket of community that were residing in the Stipe area. There's a pocket of community that were residing in the Monterey area, the apartments in Monterey. There were areas at Ledesma that were next to Edenvale. And so as the restructuring of after school consolidation was really to emphasize and focus on neighborhood community schools where there wasn't those type of dynamics that would create transportation as a root cause of absenteeism, because we didn't see those play out pre-pandemic. If those were present pre-pandemic, then I think there may have been some correlation to that, but that's not the case in this situation. I think the impact of this particular area is part of the dynamics I think our entire state face in terms of those two competing factors, being as safe as possible and encouraging that with also the dynamics of, recording attendance and how the impact of that.
And if I may add to that, Superintendent Monzo, that's exactly right. The data showed that our chronic absenteeism rate is 3 times higher now than it was pre-pandemic. However, transportation has not changed. And in going to our first round of differentiated assistance, there are 18 districts in Santa Clara County in differentiated assistance. And the number one indicator for everyone was chronic absenteeism. So even in districts who may have a different transportation or a wider transportation policy for students, because of size of district, they're experiencing the same thing. However, I would like to add to that, and I know we have our Director of Student Services, Oscar Ortiz, here as well. For students who are identified as foster youth or students experiencing homelessness, we do have avenues, programs, funding to be able to provide transportation for our neediest students, and as well as some students who are identified as overflow because their neighborhood school may be full and they don't have the opportunity, as Superintendent Monzo said, to be able to walk to school. If we do have an identification that they are students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged and may benefit from some support and transportation, we are working on those one-off cases in addition to what we're already providing for our foster youth and students experiencing homelessness.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you to you both for answering that question. I do think, though, Member Pacheco, you bring up an interesting point. I can't remember who started to write the bill, but within, I want to say, the last year, there was a bill that was proposed to expand transportation, but I think it got pulled just because of the financial implications. It was right, good intention, if I remember correctly, but then it wasn't getting the backing because there wasn't really a financial plan to go with it. So I do think there's some interest there, Member Pacheco. I know for me in the high school level, transportation is a huge issue, but we also are serving larger areas at a time. So I think that would be something interesting to explore, though, Member Pacheco.
Thank you. And I have a few other questions. Superintendent Monzo, when school consolidation happened, did the board also take any action regarding bus transportation for general education students at that time?
They did. And so as part of the action with school consolidation, the board also took action to eliminate general ed transportation. There was a 1-year period of a pilot for the area related to in close proximity to Ledesma that were scheduled to go to Baldwin. and I think another little area of Ledesma. And that pilot was intended to see if there was enough ridership at a fee-based structure to warrant the sustainability of that transportation. And there was very little utilization of that transportation option when it was offered. And that was immediately after the school consolidation was completed.
And just looking through,
to eliminate general ed transportation for the district.
Mhm. And then I heard you say that, chronic absenteeism historically hasn't been much of an issue pre-pandemic. Though just looking at the data for Latino Hispanic students, there is an increase, there's growth in chronic absenteeism between 17, 18, 18, 19, which is around the same time as when these actions happen, consolidation, the cancellation of bus transportation for general ed students. And I heard Assistant Superintendent Bowles say that there are services for our most high need students. Though, of course, like the last thing we would ever want to see is growth. And due to the disrupted data, we don't really know what the data looks like after 19. So my question is really, if there are subgroups that have been growing with chronic absenteeism, shouldn't that warrant more targeted attention, even though overall our district students, have been, I guess, sticking out with a chronic absenteeism? How do we make sure that we focus in on the subgroups that are showing growth, that has shown growth between 17, 18, 18, 19, such as Hispanic students, Latino students, and socioeconomically disadvantaged students?
I do wonder to that point, Jose, if there is any data around like if there's multi-family households, multi-generational households, because I know that at least in my community, has been a big gap as the reason why, we're not sending our kids to school sick, or our kids are coming home, or our kids are getting sick more often within the household. There's multiple families and then multiple generations within that household. So I wonder if we have any data on that.
I don't know that we have specific data on actual multi-families in similar dwellings, and I'd have to see how we might be able to get that. Does that exist? Absolutely. I know that I think in our district and across our county, I think some of the pressures that come with living in this area also create pressures for figuring out how to make the living conditions work. And so we do know that we do have families, multiple families in similar dwellings in similar areas. The one thing also that the differentiated assistant does is it does explore those options, Member Pacheco, that you're mentioning and seeing. What are some of the conditions that may be attributing to a chronic absenteeism? And so certainly we can bring that as a lens to the table, as since we're in this process already. And this is one of the areas that is highlighted as part of this work. We can certainly bring that as a lens to look at the data so that we have more information specific to that inquiry, Member Pacheco.
And thank you. And then my last point is, as we try to figure out the root causes of chronic absenteeism, we understand that like the families that are not showing up to school are also the very last families that will attend our board meetings, give public comment, or have that direct communication, oftentimes with office staff, with site level staff. So does this exploration with SCOE staff about these root causes, does that entail of also finding ways to reach out to these families and collecting qualitative data from them to see what is preventing them from coming to school? And then also not letting that be eclipsed by the public health factors, but instead trying to identify some of those historical root causes that have been leading to increases of chronic absenteeism for Hispanic Latino students and also socioeconomically disadvantaged students since as early as 17, 18, 18, 19.
Yes, absolutely. I can share that from our first meeting in differentiated assistance, one of our first tasks is to start collaborating around empathy interview questions. And so we were going to, as a team, really take a look at how we can go out, build relationships first and foremost with families before we ask them to sit with us and answer some questions, explaining the why, building that trust. But we really want to dovetail that qualitative and quantitative data together, building a problem of practice. We spend half of the time, or a good chunk of the time Friday, doing a fishbone diagram where we really get into the root causes and then starting to develop that problem of practice. We also noticed just some interesting data that surfaced too, where we're doing some comparative analysis of chronic absenteeism data, and in addition to academic indicators. And we did find that for all students, it makes a difference in academics. We know that if with chronic absenteeism or when their attendance in school, but we did find through our time together and teasing through that process that it is especially impactful to our foster youth and homeless youth and our students with disabilities. We noticed a correlation that not only did their chronic absenteeism rate increase, but also then their academic indicator decreased from 2019. Other groups, we did see an increase in chronic absenteeism, but a stable level to say in their status. And so it was really compelling to be able to spend that time collaboratively. We had community liaison from Oak Grove at the table as well, who already has so much trust. All of our community liaisons having such trust in the community, and we're certainly going to be tapping into them and all of some of our other resources for conducting those empathy interviews and some time one-on-one to really listen and not talk, and just really gather the information that they can share with us so that we can learn from their experiences.
And kind of supporting that effort, I know members of our team are also have been doing a book study on street data. And I think, can you share a little bit about some of the information that kind of speaks to what you're just talking about, empathy interviews and going beyond kind of normal means of eliciting and feedback in then very kind of traditional ways of doing so?
Exactly. So getting down on that street level, us going, not expecting the community to come to us to tell the stories, but for us to, again, build those relationships, that trust to go on out and seek those stories and to listen to the voices that are usually not present or marginalized, as Trustee Pacheco mentioned, not showing up to the board meetings, speaking at public comment, or maybe even to the home and school club meetings at the school. So we're really going to be with the team participating in differentiated assistance, looking at who is it that we should be going to talk to, what kind of questions do we want to be asking, and then how can we develop a supportive process, not just in how we approach them, invite them, but also our body language, how we receive, even to the point of how do we or do we not take notes right in the meeting, just to make sure that we're making the community members feel comfortable. And so some of those tenets have been described in that book, Street Data, that ESB and some other members have been kind of engaging in reading with Partners in School Innovation as well.
Yeah, and I think part of this whole process also, we have to think about how we don't project blame as part of seeking understanding and supporting families as to make a positive impact on some of these areas. And so I think part of that is around building trust and the things that we do and the way that we speak and engage that is from a lens of support, from a lens of, hey, we're in this together, from a lens of, how can we help? What are the things that we can do to create improvements? And because, I haven't met a parent that doesn't want the best for their kids, right? And so I think we always have to start from that lens, from that perspective, and build from that.
The other
Thank
thing
you.
I may add that all the 18 districts that are participating, every single one of the districts is going to be focusing on chronic absenteeism. So the collective efficacy of all of us in the room trying to figure this out together, I think will also lend a lot of collaboration. And then also locally, internally, Director Ortiz has also started a subcommittee of even our own educational partners, not just administrators, not just teachers, but also secretaries, community liaisons, to really start exploring internally a subcommittee on what we can do immediately as well.
Thank
Thank
you. I
you so much
appreciate it.
for
all the
sharing.
answers.
Apologies, member Pacheco, and then trustee Jaco, I know you had a question.
Yeah, thank you so much for the explanation and presentation of the data and explaining the background and the shift and the change of how to view the data and how it's presented. With the data that was presented for the district as a whole, I'm just wondering if you have had an opportunity to disaggregate that data even further by school site, particularly when it comes to absenteeism and suspensions. And just wondering, are there certain schools that are more impacted than others? And are there any correlations between the two, right? Between absenteeism and suspensions?
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Jacob, that's a great question. Director Enna has disaggregated that data by school site. And we're actually going to be sharing that information with the principals next week at our meeting. All of the data is also transparent and viewable on the dashboard as well. And you can search just by individual school. You can search by district and get reports that way as well. So we are in the preliminary stages of engaging with that, diving deep of data at the site level, in addition to what we've already presented for you at the district level.
We can also include that maybe in a Friday letter that we get the data that you requested via email, or the Friday letter that we get. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, trustees?
Just a last comment. We know that there are areas that of focus and even through conversations with the board, there's specific areas that we know that we want to highlight, and one of those areas being in the area of math, because as I believe I noted in one of prior communications, the area of math saw the most significant impact in terms of academic drops for all subgroups across the board, state and at a local level as well. And so, part of the complexity of math alongside the utilization of language that is so embedded in the math and how students project knowledge of skills and concepts, not only from a procedural standpoint, but also from a written and explanation standpoint. All of those have also additional implications in terms of that gap of practice, of that 2-year gap of practice, of that consistency of exposure and teaching and practice and all of that. And so I know that those are areas that also were uplifted in past conversations with our board alongside safety. And so we certainly have that lens as we continue to do this work and we explore opportunities for improvement through this process. So I wanted to highlight that as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Monso. If there are no other questions or comments from trustees, that does conclude our information item 8.1 for the night, leading us to correspondence for discussion and committee reports. I'll go ahead and open the floor to trustees.
Not too much to report. The safety committee did meet this month. We did discuss Measure P funds, how they could be utilized in the most productive way based on teacher and community feedback, and looking how we can go out and get even more feedback before we use those funds. I also reached out to our superintendent. He graciously offered to attend these meetings at least quarterly, so that collaboration is smooth. So I do want to let you guys know that we are prioritizing safety we will be visiting Davis tomorrow, and I do hope to drop in a couple times next week as well, as my schedule allows. But we have talked specifically about fights and student incidents on campus, and we have agreed to work to prioritize those specifically. So yeah, that's what I have for safety committee. That's all that I have to report.
I just want to say, well, the committees I'm on have not met yet. They're coming up, so I look forward to reporting out, and also in the works of planning some site visits. And so looking forward to getting out to classrooms and meeting with students and educators and maybe families.
Hey, everybody. So same here. I'm not I think my committees have met yet, but I'm looking forward to attending those and reporting back next time. I do look forward to coordinating some time to meet with the principals in my district and get to know more about the issues there, especially with the issue that Bob brought up about Baldwin. So looking forward to just being out there and just see what's going on and meeting the principals and everybody out there. Thank you.
I can go next. I just wanted to say thank you to OGEA, President Berlin, and all of the team that helped us get recognized for our work supporting LGBTQ students and staff. It's really nice to see our work be highlighted at the state level. And it makes me really proud to be part of this district, to be part of this really awesome team, and to have worked so closely with our awesome teachers, and also to be a CTA member myself. And then I just wanted to give a shout out to Superintendent Monzo for just always answering my questions and giving such great communication and partnership to me. I feel this year is off to a really great start, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more updates from everybody's committees. And I think this is all really thanks to the executive team led by Superintendent Monzo. And I think this board is really well suited and well supported to lead to success. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Member Pacheco. I don't think I could have closed out any better. Tonight really has been such a beautiful evening to kick off 2023. And I feel like it was such a robust, well-rounded meeting where we got to hear just all the different components of our district. So again, I just appreciate all the work that went into tonight, but also the ongoing work that we get to see and that we don't see behind all the closed doors, right? Of all the hard work that y'all are putting out. So thank you. At this time, I am looking for a motion and second to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Regular board meeting on January 19th, 2023 is adjourned at 8:35 p.m. Thank you and have a great night.